All right, we're live. This is yet another recording of Mere Mortal Dev. Thanks for joining in. If you're checking in live or if you're watching this later, super happy you're checking it out. Today we're going to walk through setting up Node.js to talk to Ollama for doing local stuff programmatically with large language models. There's a likelihood that you've heard of Ollama, or certainly you've heard of things that sound like llama in some ways. But Ollama is like a tool that I've been like really excited about for quite a while. So if we go over to this, it's at ollama.com. You can get up and running with large language models, and by up and running, specifically what they mean is, first of all, if you downloaded it, you've already got a CLI, the command line interface, running inside of your computer that you can then use to talk to large language models. So we're actually going to have a look at that in just a bit. But first, I just thought I'd kind of click around the website just to give you an idea of what's here. They have a blog, Discord, and GitHub, which is all fine. Those are different resources you can check out. But what you're going to want to do if you haven't set this up before is, first of all, download Ollama for your computer, and then after that you're going to need some models. So I already have it downloaded. We're not going to sit here and watch that, but I thought I'd just kind of show off real quick, like this just gigantic list of models that they have available to you. So all these models are different models that just with a single command in your terminal you can pull down to your machine and run them locally. So some of the latest and greatest, like Llama 3.1 and Gemma 2 and so on. You can tell just kind of by looking just at the top level here the different parameter sizes that are going to be available to you, as well as like how recently it's been updated and some stuff like that. So let's just say, for example, we're obviously not going to sit here and pull these things down because they're gigabytes of information that you'd have to pull into your computer. So I won't do that live here, but let's just have a look at Llama 3.1, for example. So like if you were to already have the command installed, the command line interface installed, you do Ollama run and then the name of the model that you want to run. Typically before that, you're going to do an Ollama pull, and that'll actually pull them down for you if that's what you want running locally on your machine. You'll have to think through like whether your machine can handle it or not. The machine that I'm broadcasting from here is a MacBook Air with an M2, and it can actually run with some of these some of the models that are within reason. We'll play around with what I mean by that in a minute. I have also a Mac Studio that has a lot of much more higher specs that can handle some of the bigger models. So for the Mac Studio, I might actually take this 70 billion parameter version of Llama 3.1, but for the MacBook Air, certainly I would not. I would want to stick to the 8 billion parameter one. So anyways, you can kind of jump in and see like kind of some models come along with instructions that are fairly detailed and specs and performance characteristics and all of that. But that's really not necessary just to kind of get up running and playing with it. If this is your first time, reading through some of the stuff could feel a bit intimidating, and really the good news here is that like you don't have to worry about that. So just if you want to get up and start playing around. So that's what we're going to do, actually. We'll head over to my terminal where, let's see. So we can see if we have Ollama installed, and we do. So next what we'll do is just see if, the help command, just to get an idea of like what the interface is on the command line. And we have things like, you can see here, serve, create, show, run, pull, and so on. The size of the command line interface itself from an API level, if you will, from in terms of the commands that are available to you, is actually like pretty digestible, which is quite nice. So I mean, let's just go with something like this. Let's see, like, what what models do I have locally? And you can see here that I have a few. I've got Tiny Llama, Llama 3.1, CodeStraw, and Llama 2. This one kind of gives their unique IDs for each one, and then also shows the size and when it was modified. So you can see that, I pulled down Llama 2 about 6 months ago, CodeStraw 3 months ago. Llama 3.1 I pulled down, a couple of days ago, because why? I was looking at a repo, I believe it was a repo to Vec that I was trying. We won't go over that one today, but anyways, that dependency was Llama 3.1, so I pulled that down just to play around with it. Maybe one of the first examples we'll actually look at of running an LLM locally is going to be Tiny Llama. So why don't we do this? Actually, we can do this side by side, which might be kind of fun. So on one side over here, I'm going to try to make these roughly the same size if I can. Cool. Okay, so on one side over here, we're going to do, we'll start with just trying Tiny Llama. So why don't we do that? We'll cd into dev as well, although this doesn't matter. At least the command prompts will look the same. Okay, so over here on this side, I'm going to start just by, let's do Ollama run, and then we saw that I had a model called Tiny Llama, so let's jump into that one. All right, so now we're in essentially like a chat program where we can just talk to the llama at this point, or the LLM at this point. So let's just say, for example, like I want to ask it a question like, what are some cool things to see in NYC? And keep in mind that this is running on a MacBook Air M2. This is a tiny model, as you saw, and what that means is, there are going to be some things that it just doesn't excel at, that some other models might, but it makes up for that in speed. What we just saw there, I didn't even get a chance to explain some of that stuff that I just said, and it's already done typing, which is really neat. And the reason I mentioned that is we can compare that with like running maybe like one of the newer models, which I had was Llama 3.1. So let's do Llama run, Llama. I think it was like this. No. Well, we have a handy command, so we can remember it. Oh, okay, there we go. So we're going to do Ollama run Llama 3.1. And you can see just kind of getting it set up in the first place is going to take some time. Let's see how much this actually ends up like crushing my system RAM. But the main thing I wanted to show to you is like, let's just ask it the same question we did earlier, right? So what are some cool things to see in NYC? What are some cool things to see in NYC? And you can start to see that the speed is fairly diminished, right? I have seen some situations where before it even kind of starts moving at all, you're kind of waiting for a little while. I haven't quite figured out under what circumstances that happens. So I think yesterday I had a lot going on where there was just a lot of resources or a lot of applications demanding resources in terms of RAM. So that meant that we were sitting around, like I'd be sitting around waiting for this to even spin up in the first place. So anyways, you can kind of see the shape of the responses and the depth are different. But the trade-off that we're making is a fairly obvious one. Running something like Tiny Llama, a smaller model, is going to be a lot faster on something like an Apple M2, whereas running the latest and greatest frontier model like Llama 3.1 is going to take longer, and then you can expect results that are kind of similar, or sort of. You can expect results like based on the size of the model and what you're trying to do. So we're not going to go too deep into Llama 3.1 today, so we'll say bye to you. And then I want to come back over here for a second and see if I can make this model do something a little unexpected. And I'm not going to sit here and try to break it, but I did find it interesting. Maybe we'll spin it back up from 0 so there's not any chat context to go on. So we'll do it again. Ollama run, Tiny Llama. Cool. And what are some sites in NYC? I think was a question I asked it earlier, kind of before my brain got moving in terms of like thinking through how to ask questions. And yeah, okay, so this is what I was looking for. And interestingly enough, at least with this, like I'm seeing just a list of websites that are related to New York in some ways. Previously, when I asked this question, Tiny Llama interpreted my question as like a mix of websites and places to see, which I thought were interesting. So anyways, like you can expect it to sort of like understand and give you quality based on, the size of the model and, how much data it's been trained on. That won't be a surprise to anyone, but I think for our purposes today, what we want to do is stick with something small and fast. So we're going to go with this model, Tiny Llama. Okay. So far what we've done is just kind of had a look at, okay, Ollama, you go to ollama.com, you download it, have a look at the different types of models that are available to you. And there really are just an absolute ton on the list, and that list continues to grow. But either way, we already had a few downloaded here when we typed in Ollama list, and we compared Tiny Llama and Llama 3.1. All of this is so that we can tee up or kind of warm up to the fact that what we want to be able to do is actually work with these models locally through code. One of the neat things about Ollama is that it comes with an API under the hood, so we can actually call out to it. And so that's what we're going to do. And in order to get up and running with that, why not, since we're already so deep into models, we'll actually talk to Claude about this live and see how it goes. So let's say, for example, hi, I want to write a Node.js script that talks to Ollama models locally. And let's see what we get. So while it's crunching the code, most likely what we're going to end up getting here is some form of, let's see. So in this case, it looks like it is using a node module, which I think I want to avoid for the time being, just because, in case anyone here is not doing this inside of Node.js, there's a, we don't want to get too far into the weeds of a particular module, although this might be a fine option for Node.js developers. So what we're going to do instead is ask it to do something else. So we'll say, actually, I want to call Ollama over HTTP instead of using the Ollama node module. By the way, please be sure to use ESM, so ECMAScript modules. And so you can see here that we're doing requires. Inside of OpenAI, I've made a custom prompt that just reminds it of all of my druthers regarding Node.js. Like, let's not use CommonJS anymore, let's use ESM. And there's one other one that comes to mind frequently. And we're going to end up running into it, but I'm blanking at the moment. So, this is it. And Node.js native fetch. And the reason I'm mentioning this is that frequently, or almost invariably, it will download a package called node fetch, but fetch is just part of Node.js now, and I don't want to add extra packages if I don't need to. So let's see what we get back. Great. So this is what I wanted to show you. The Ollama API URL in the code that it spit out over here, you can see that the Ollama is just serving up on localhost 11434. It appears. Let's check and make sure that that's true. It is. So if you just go to that in your browser, you'll see that Ollama is running. So cool. We know that Ollama is running. There's probably some stuff that you can do via, directly in the browser if that's the way you wanted to go, for something kind of hacky and local. I'm not sure what a use case for that would be, but anyways, I do like occasionally just to check on this one to see like, is Ollama up and running? Because if it's not, obviously you can't call it. But in this case, Ollama is serving in the background here on this port. So perfect. And it ignored me about the fetch thing, didn't it? That's amazing. Okay, cool. I'm still getting used to working with Claude, so I'm kind of having fun just kind of pushing on it a little bit while doing the stream. But I have noticed occasionally it'll just outright ignore something I said. So anyways, not a terrible problem, but we'll just basically not use this import. Okay, so let's go back into our terminal, and at this point, what we want to do is, let's see, we're going to pull the terminal back over here. Awesome. So what we want to do over here now is we're going to make a new directory. We're going to call it Ollama local. Seems like a reasonable name. Okay, and then inside of this directory, we're going to go ahead and do an npm init y, just to skip all the boilerplate stuff. Then we shall, we're going to go ahead and make a index.js, because we know we'll need that. We're going to npm install nothing, it looks like, which is kind of a neat feeling. And after that, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we may end up needing, and it's not coming to mind. So let's just go ahead and try this. We'll open up VS Code. We're going to trust ourselves, and let's jump into the code here. So we'll pull up the integrated terminal, and from here we're already CD'd into our directory. Okay, great. So one of the things, since we know that we're using ESM, that's pretty easy to forget if we don't get in the habit of typing this. I haven't found a way to just easily npm init a new package.json and have it be a module. I don't know if that's a flag or something. It would be super nice to have that though, but just make sure you come in here and do this if you're using ESM. And then we'll go back into Claude here, and we're going to grab all the code and chunk it in here, and we'll kind of have a look at what everything's doing. But before we do that, I actually just want to see if it runs. So it looks like it's going to explain the concept of recursion in programming, and it's going to send that request, and then we'll get the response. It's saying we're using Llama 2. I want to use Tiny Llama, so let's go ahead and make that change now. And then before we kind of go through any of the code and talk about it, I just want to see if this thing does the thing. Let's find out. All right, so it seems like we're having a JSON error. Let's see if we can find where we're sending JSON in the first place. Right, so we're passing in the model and the prompt. So this is the prompt. Okay, so it looks like we're doing JSON.stringify. So while we're thinking through this, let's see if Claude can help out too. one of the nice things about working with models is it's pretty cool that we can just chunk some different error messages at it and get back nice responses. So I actually, before this stream started, I had a Mac system crash, and I strongly suspect it's because I was doing so much with the different models while also trying to run OBS to do the streaming, while also having I don't know, like hundreds of Safari tabs open. There was a lot of pressure on the memory. I think that's what it was. But you know how like when you restart the Mac, you get that thing that says, "Hey, send a report to Apple." You can always click through and get details. I'm a big fan of like actually grabbing those and just chunking them into an LLM to see if it can make heads or tails of what it is, what might have happened. And indeed, one of the things it came back with was like, this might have been a memory problem, but it also said it could have been a few other things, including kernel extensions. So I don't know. It was not super precise in this one situation, but I've had it actually zero in on some let's say like clear offenders of crashing my Mac in the past. But anyways, error messages in LLMs, pretty great. So it looks like instead, like it was saying it was choking on the response. So let's see if, we were getting a, right. So once we passed off all of this stuff, it seems like the fetch call was working, but the response coming back, whatever we were doing with the JSON here, or maybe it's not returning JSON, that could have been the issue. So what we'll do is go ahead and grab the new code and paste that in. We will get rid of this once more. You can start to see how like it's nice when you can coach the LLM to sort of like start to remember some of the things you're trying to get it to do at the code level. Because otherwise you have to come back in and make all these tiny little changes each time you want to update the code. So let's see if this does anything. All right, there we go. So you can start to see it's just talking to Tiny Llama in the background. And since it's Tiny Llama, it's super fast. We can run this again, and let's try it with Llama 2 and see if the script chokes due to response format. It should be standard for all of them, but no reason not to find out. Okay, cool. So again, like Llama 2 is like surprisingly like well behaved today. Let's just try it with Llama 3.1 to see if we can like super slow it down. But we have to wait on this to finish talking to us. Some of the bigger Llama models are certainly more verbose. Can we just interrupt you? Let's try. Yeah. All right, cool. So now we're going to run it. We're sending it over to Llama 3.1. Let's see what the response time is here. This is my favorite part of demoing models, is waiting for them to see if they're even going to respond. And sometimes you're waiting for quite a while, but we're getting pretty lucky today for some reason. So the wait time here wasn't super bad at all, but depending on what you're trying to ship, you may not want to offer that as part of your user experience. So just worth playing around with and learning more. But anyways, let's get into the code of like how is this happening. And again, I think like some of the it looks like we're streaming the response back. So we're doing some stuff with like I'm guessing like a read stream or response stream. Yeah. Okay. So it created this whole like helper function here that is passing in the query and then getting a reader from the response. And from there, it's doing all this like stuff just to kind of like, as more chunks come through, it's passing those off to print them in the console. And that's kind of it. We're not going to go through the code deeply just because like I actually suspect I did this yesterday and I found a way to do it that felt a little bit more concise. So I want to maybe grab that and see if we can kind of have a look at that next time as like just an example of how to handle this stuff pretty quickly, without getting into like generators and using yield and all of that, which this one seems to be doing today. And some of this other stuff where we're concatenating strings, it appears. So we'll see. I might be misremembering, but either way, the point is that you can see how this stuff starts to work, and you can build some pretty cool stuff locally. One of the things that I've done before is just kind of have something set up to where, like, I can spin up a node application and kind of have something running where I can talk to it. But that's not super different, or maybe not even different at all, is just like running Ollama, run Tiny Llama. And sure, I can do it here too. I think the difference, of course, is if we stick an application on the front end of it, then we can start to build like user interfaces and stuff like that, as opposed to having a situation where we're just typing into a terminal. So there's a lot of really fun stuff to play around with here. I think the main points for the stream today is just like, one, Ollama exists, and that's pretty cool because it's a command line interface that lets you pull models of all kinds of sizes and use cases and run those locally, which is really cool. That is doable even on an Apple M2. So I have another computer in this room that's that's an M2 Ultra, where it's even better. It works great on M3s. I have one of those now too. So you can start to sense that like this stuff's just going to get better and better as we get more RAM in the devices and better chips. So there's that. Local is possible and actually pretty cool. And Ollama is neat because it's not just a CLI and that's how you interact, but it actually exposes the models over a localhost server on this port. So lots of cool stuff to play with here. I think one of the things I want to do is just kind of see like what are others doing. So if anyone happens to be watching this and has like something that they've built, I would love to see it, just to get an idea of like what are some of the cool things that we can do locally. In my book, if we can do it locally, that's pretty cool. So the services that we need to call out to are certainly great, but like there's something about not having to worry about like what data you're sending where is definitely one benefit of running these things locally. But another is also just like you don't need the internet, right, to be able to run an app and interact with an LLM if you have it local, which is pretty sweet. And so anyways, like I want to try to nudge at the edges of my own ability to build some stuff with local models. It feels like Ollama is going to be a key piece of that journey. So anyways, thanks for tuning in to Mere Mortal Dev today. We just talked about Ollama and getting set up with some basic stuff in Node.js, and we'll certainly come back to this again to see what we can do on top of this setup, and to leverage the tool in some interesting ways. Thank you.